Hey, it's Nick and Eric, and we are back from our only trip to Sonoma in 2024. But the good news is we're going back there twice in 2025, in March and November. So if you need an excuse to sneak out of all those family functions during the holidays, just say you're prepping your Lemons car for 2025.
Going to Sonoma in November is new for us. Normally our fall date is actually in December, which means that this time we saw more Thanksgiving themes than Christmas themes. Like Hella Shitty Racing, who went full pumpkin spice a la Dune with a new livery for their car and a whole basket full of pumpkin spice stuff. We also had the No-Par Dodge Colt guys back with their brass quartet doing a Thanksgiving song about chickens. Close enough. That was great. And we had the People's Republic of Racing with their Honda CRX and these excellent outfits.
People's Republic of Racing also brought their latest version of Rate My Hoopty, which is their own home-crafted AI-driven car rating system. All you gotta do, pull your car in front of the webcam, Rate My Hoopty looks at it, identifies it, and evaluates your car.
Its reputation as the go-to vehicle for roadsters on trailing wheels is firmly intact.
This is the third or fourth time Rate My Hoopty has been in a race, and this was the first time it recognized cars specifically on its own as being for the 24 hours of Lemons. Now this is a great development. The fact that this AI can learn on its own, make correct contextual evaluations and observations about its surroundings, doesn't have any practical downsides that
Here are your class winners. Your Class C winner, the anal probe. Well, they were celebrating an important milestone. And they had some challenges just making it to the race. Earlier this year, there were some unprecedented flooding in the San Diego area where they're from, and the shop where they store the race car was flooded with doo-doo water. So after months of drying out and hopefully disinfecting the car, they marked the water line with biohazard tape.
Boy, it's good that the doo-doo water stopped there. Otherwise, boy, that would have been bad.
That was a close call.
We had a great roster of judges here, including Corey, Mental,
Restoration's perfected!
and Eric, making a rare West Coast visit.
You know, I'm getting notes of oak.
And of course, Timber. Wood. What can't it do?
This message brought to you by the Wood Council.
That card's amazing!
Now, we as the judges applied a wide range of penalties. Here are a few in descending order of making sense. You had the five-legged race. LMFAO karaoke, you had the West Virginia homesteaders penalty, and you had the Sonomans. The Sonomans was of course a nod to SNL soap opera parody The Californians. Judgmental rewrote an entire script that a Black Flag team then had to perform.
Thank you, Mr. Tim.
Anton, Mary, and the rest of the legendary Onset/Tetanus Racing gang were back with their Volvo PV 544, and a nice reminder that Lemons Racing is an inclusive place for all car enthusiasts.
We had a lot of great cars and themes as we usually do. We will start with the Billy Joel themed Cadillac Alante from You Ought to Know By Now Racing.
And he's traded in his Chevy for a Cadillac.
This thing is amazing. Just check out the working digital dash on this.
Then we had Porsche It Racing. They were rookies in an 06 Mustang. There were a lot of great rookies at this event. By our admittedly not great calculations, the Porsche It Mustang was the top finishing of those rookie teams. And to boot, they had this excellent hippie Porsche theme.
Another rookie team was Miata Mafia, and when we say rookies, we mean this is a bunch of teenagers who found out about Lemons like 3 weeks before the race, pulled a dead Miata out of a field in like Modesto or Turlock, and then at the race, we're putting the finishing touches on the roll cage with a little help from Erica Snow of Sierra College, of course. Point being, if you're thinking about doing lemons but haven't been able to put it together, just remember a bunch of teenagers did it in 3 weeks.
On the subject of rookies who got help from Erica Snow, here we've got Cholos and a baby Carlos. They showed up with a Honda Accord that had the special ultra-low emissions vehicle version of that engine. I'm sure that's great for racing. And a cage that needed a bunch of work. Erica jumped in, helped them finish, they got out on track.
Don't Panic Racing were rookies with the first Volvo C70 in Lemons, which is the convertible version of the car I drive every day, which is a Volvo V50. Theirs had a rare manual transmission. I'm a little jealous of that, but the engine packed up early, ended their weekend. You know, I'm in no way worried about this relating to my life whatsoever.
Keeping the rookie train rolling, we've got Martinelli Racing and their Mercedes SLK 230 compressor. This car looked very nice. It was mechanically troubled as they can be. They got it fixed, they got out on track, and in the opening hour, put it in the wall. On the subject of new cars, this former 2-car team of Zitronenkopf Dumpkopf is now a 3-car team. Now, if you don't recall this team, they've got a Mustang and a Geo Metro, and the Geo routinely just obliterates the Mustang in the final standings for some reason. So, presumably thinking that a worse car on paper makes a better car on track, they added a 3rd car, which is a Pontiac Fiero. Was it better?
Yes, well!
It was not. It showed up with a rod knock and never finished its first lap.
Then you've got the Hulk Smash in their Porsche 944, which includes team captain Renee and her father Louis. Unfortunately, they had to cancel one of their entries earlier this year because Louis had to have open heart surgery. Good news is that Louis is back in the car for the event, and the even better news is they convinced his heart surgeon, Azimuth, to join the team. In his first stint, it was raining and he spun, and the Porsche stopped running for absolutely no reason. He got the full Lemons experience in his first event.
Oktoberfest Racing have run a very basic setup, 4-cylinder 2002 for years. For this event, they added a second 2002 with a 6-cylinder from an E30, which seems familiar somehow. So how was the 6-cylinder? Well, I talked to the team captain and he said that it handles worse and is slower than their 4-cylinder. I don't have any concerns about that relating to my life.
Let's check in on Electric Turtle in their 2018 Chevy Bolt. There's a small collection of EV teams who race in Lemons right now. They developed kind of a nice little community where they fly around the country to race with each other. For this race couple, the Arc Blast guys out of Colorado who race an EV Datsun truck flew to California to do some stints in the Bolt, which for this race was done up in a slow horses theme. In some parts of the country, like Deer Trail, Colorado, where Arc Blast normally races, EV charging infrastructure is maybe still a work in progress, but here in Northern California, and specifically near Sonoma Raceway, you might be able to find a combination winery / gas station / EV charger / deli, which is of course exactly where Electric Turtle went to meet their charging needs, do a little wine shopping, and inspect local viticulture. 2 of the team members were hit with an unexpected case of food poisoning. One of them had to stop the car during the race session to barf, and another guy projectile vomited all over their paddock space. Sorry, paddock neighbors. But hey, as we've said before, EV racing is in its infancy. There's gonna be some speed bumps along the way.
Alright, for all of you gasoline forever types gloating about how having an EV will result in projectile vomiting every time, don't forget that some of those vaunted gas-powered cars are, in fact, BMWs. Take, for example, the Barrio Motorsports 318 Ti, which blew its diff on the warm-up lap and then got a replacement, only to find some kind of BMW-ass mid-year change in axle shaft length, or whatever it was, which resulted in even more time off the track and more trips to the pick and pull. And then there was another E36, the Unicorns Ain't Us 325. They had some clutch issue where the piston from the slave cylinder spit out into the inside of the transmission bell housing. So instead of just having to replace the slave cylinder, they had to remove the entire transmission to extract that piston. So we went over to their paddock space to check on their progress, and for some reason they were in the middle of removing the intake manifold. Why? Because the intake manifold was blocking access to the bolt holding the starter on. That needed to be removed in order to remove the transmission, in order to get to the slave cylinder part.
Deutschland, Deutschland, über alles.
For all of you, that's why I don't buy Euro cars, people gloating about BMW misfortune, don't forget that the V8 swapped planned obsolescence 1979 Buick Skyhawk blew up on the warm-up lap and finished it dead last. Fun fact, by the way, all of those cars we just mentioned finished behind the projectile vomiting Chevy Bolt guys. On the subject of warm-up lap problems, let's kick off the awards with the judge's choice, which went to the rookies of Chorizo Racing and their Infiniti G35. We had high hopes as soon as we saw them show up. They had an excellent chorizo theme, complete with big smiling chorizo on the roof and a platter of chorizo tacos for the judges, custom chorizo stickers, and an amazing group of friends and family there to support their racing efforts. And those racing efforts lasted until about 100 feet short of the green flag, where they mashed the gas and smashed into the front straight wall. This led to an entire weekend of repairs, computer issues, trips to the junkyard, bartering with fellow racers, all to finish the weekend with 0 laps completed. They were definitely in contention for I Got Screwed, but the chorizo tacos and a flaming Volkswagen, more on that in a bit, moved them over to the Judge's Choices Award. We're sorry their first trophy in Lemons had to come this way, but we're looking forward to seeing this team and all their supporters in the future.
Before we get into the Organizer's Choice Award, let's have some recognition for all of the very well made Back to the Future DeLorean replicas from this event, starting with the 1.21 gigawatts VW GTI. And then you had the 85 Maxima of McFly Motorsports. I especially like the trash cans, that's a nice touch. But the third and final DeLorean replica is in fact our Org Choice winner. It's the 85 Pontiac Fiero of Team DeLorean. This is a rookie team that decided the best way to get their feet wet in Lemons was to A, get a Fiero, B, make it look like a DeLorean from Back to the Future, and C, swap in a high-technology Cadillac V8 from a 93 DeVille. And of course they had a lot of good DeLorean bits instead of the trash can reactor cooling vents that McFly Motorsports used on their Maxima. This team opted for the better, in our minds, black plastic oil change ramps. So there were some teething issues with the mechanical portion of this build. They had replaced the stock fuel injection system with a carburetor on top of a particularly homemade adapter plate, and they had some alignment issues with the rear suspension, and it also kind of caught fire when the engine mounts let the engine rock enough that the ignition wire shorted out on the exhaust manifold, so that was exciting. But they did manage to complete several laps when the car was running actually pretty well.
Sick cam, bros.
Oh, and they also wanted us to know that in the early part of the weekend, when the weather was pretty wet, that their air filter was taken from a wet-dry vacuum. Nice bit of advanced planning.
This was a very exciting race for us, and really the whole world of motorsports, because we had
Not one, not two,
but 3 Chrysler PT Cruisers on the racetrack. We had the Donut Pass Me 02 PT Cruiser, we had the Sequel Injection PT3 RS, and we had the Mile High Pistons out of Colorado with an 01 PT Cruiser. To commemorate this historical occasion, we as the former editorial staff of Cruiser Quarterly magazine, that's a true story by the way, presented a special award to Mile High Pistons for completing the most laps of the 3, the Cruiser Quarterly American Cruisin' USA Award.
Heroic fix went to the 82 Toyota Supra of Staircore Supra. I don't know exactly what Staircore means. It's either a reference to a deathcore metal band from Slovakia, or it's a reference to doo-doo. They originally bought this car as a partly done race car project, and the folks they bought it from had the race car, but they also had this second complete parts car full of doo-doo. While many people may be overwhelmed at buying a second dead car when the plan was to grab only one, this team said, yeah, you know what? You he might need that other car someday.
He might need that other car someday. He might need that other car.
So they did buy this other parts car, but they did not bring it to the track. Fortunately for them, right after the race car had ejected a rod out of the block, one of the team members' dads called saying, "Hey, I'm on the way to the track. Do you guys need anything?" "Hi, son. I'm headed to the track today for a relaxing day of watching your team skillfully navigate the twists and turns of Sonoma Raceway in your flawlessly running Toyota Supra, and I was just wondering if you would like me to grab anything on the way."
Sure, Dad. Yeah, we could use some sunscreen, Gatorade, maybe some cheese balls. Oh, and while you're at it, maybe a 2007 Silverado 2500 HD pulling a 20-foot Victory V-nose enclosed trailer carrying a Matco MCS4 FD rolling tool cart, a Sunex 5222 2-ton engine hoist, and a 1982 Supra in code 3D1 Super Red that's full of rat turds because we need a 2.8-liter 5M double overhead cam straight 6 engine to replace the one we just blew up.
What size cheese balls?
Large.
Right, so all of this is happening near the end of the day on Saturday, so as they're starting to work on this engine swap, their garage neighbor, who is planning to camp overnight in the garage, realizes this thing's gonna fire up with no exhaust at 3 a.m., isn't it? So the car is in fact running in time to take the green flag on Sunday, and the team realized that they hooked up the starter wrong, but by that point they had lost the will to work on it, so they just push started it for the rest of the race, took the checkered. It was heroic.
I Got Screwed goes to our friend Crazy Mike with Motivation Lacking Motorsports and the infamous 65 Volkswagen Beetle known as Scrubby. Now, there's really no reason to beat around the bush here. This thing burst into flames. So here's the backstory. Back in, 2011, Scrubby got hit in the left rear corner during a Lemons race, maybe its very first one. Now, unbeknownst to Crazy Mike and the team, this impact had pinched a little 12-volt wire between a couple of body panels and what was left of the Beetle's factory insulation. After many years and several thousands of miles of Lemons racing, the wire wore through, eventually started grounding and sparking on the sheet metal, and eventually caught all of the insulation on fire. Since that corner also houses one of the carburetors, the fire burned through the fuel line to create a bigger fire. Now, the driver during all this was Dan Albritton, a longtime Lemons racer on the other coast who's recently transplanted to the West Coast. He's done thousands of Lemons miles himself, and we're not sure if we recommend this, but Dan decided that since the fire was behind him, there was not an imminent threat of pulling the fire bottle, which would make a huge mess and require them to replace the bottle, so he found a spot where people with an extinguisher could put it out. It worked, the fire was extinguished, the team spent hours fixing the wiring, the fuel system, even adding a custom fire shield around the carb for next time, and they got themselves back on track. So they fixed a burned up car. How did they get screwed? Because after all that, one of the brand new aftermarket valve springs didn't have anything to do with the fire, broke in half, ending their weekend. It's getting harder than ever to know whether parts you're buying are high quality, genuine, or just some kind of off-brand, low-budget knockoff that sorta looks like the rest.
For 40 days and for 40 nights, I was on the side.
This race had probably the most anticipated Halloween meets gasoline battles we've ever seen. Halloween meets gasoline is, of course, our $1,000 prize for the best theme/decoration/costumes. This was the first time the two historically most successful HMG teams, the 420 Firebird out of California and the Loose Nuts team from Tennessee, were racing at the same event, and we knew that both of these teams would go all out to win the HMG. The 420 team was racing this time under a very complex, nuanced, multi-layered, and ultimately admirable theme called Save Our Peckers. Here's the background. The team dug up an old newspaper story from the Sonoma area involving helping the local chicken population with the headline, "Save Our Peckers." And the 420 people took that idea, ran with it, turning the chicken theme into a spotlight on prostate health. And look, all joking aside, anything that raises awareness for a health concern is a noble cause, and we appreciate the grace and class with which the 420 team handled the subject.
But in the end, the Halloween Meets Gasoline Award went to Loose Nuts. Now, for starters, they towed all the way to Sonoma from Tennessee, and then they bombarded us with a relentless gold mining theme. They had miners. They had a gang of gold diggers going after anyone who looked like they might have money. And then they built an entire mine complex with pickaxes and dynamite and a running water sluice box that was made out of a garage door. Later in the weekend, the mine went bust, the miners went bankrupt, and the gold diggers were cut loose.
I'm about ready to cry. I gotta go back to work in the mines.
And despite putting all of that effort into the mining theme going on in the paddock, their crappy Camaro was out on track, racking up laps and finishing 28th overall out of 130 cars. Kind of a great show all around. Well done, Loose Nuts.
We already know that this was a banner weekend for PT Cruiser road racing, but it was also a highlight in the realm of road race cars covered in disgusting wet fur. First, you have the Furry Oldsmobile of Pony Keg, which is nicknamed Marge, that was just running as great as it always does. And then you had the fuzzy Mitsubishi Mirage of Mitsubeastie, which was also looking particularly quick when it wasn't broken. This car goes all the way back to Altamont, and it's always a crowd favorite. And lastly, you have our Index of Effluency winner, which is the grand prize in Lemons, and it went to the 75 Lincoln Continental from Team Pit Crew Revenge that they call Buttercup. Buttercup is one of the largest, furriest, and horsiest machines we've ever seen in Lemons. It's got a 460 big block and a curb weight of a lot, and Team Captain Chris has hinted that he will be retiring the car from Lemons because he can't afford the fuel. But this weekend, Buttercup guzzled its way to 59th overall in the final standings, which was plenty to score the team the IOE. They also had this fantastic fox hunt theme that they kept going for the whole weekend. It was a real treat to see these three legends of motorsports on track at the same time at the same event.
And this is Lemons in a Nutshell.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?